Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation.
Not a savage.
Of course, Benjamin isn't a savage.
Yes, he is.
Alan! Why say something like that?
He's a savage.
Well, how does he explain his behavior?
He doesn't want to discuss it.
But he ought to discuss it.
He ought to do any number of things. He ought to come here, he ought to discuss it, he ought to be sorry for it. Clearly you have parenting skills that put us to shame. We hope to improve, but in the meantime, please bear with us.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing already because the table of actors here are extremely funny people. I'm Michael Riedel. This is Theater Talk from New York City.
And I'm the show's producer, Susan Askins.
The God of Carnage is a hit play on Broadway right now. It has...
Why are they laughing?
You're playing.
It's true.
All we have to do is exchange a look.
Do I have to introduce these people? I'm not even sure. Yasmina Reza's play, The God of Carnage, is about civilized rich people on the Upper West Side who turn out to be not quite so civilized, I'm afraid. It is brilliantly acted by this table of performers, and I'm happy to have on Theater Talk tonight Marcia Gay Harden.
Hi.
Hope Davis.
Hello.
Jim Gandolfini, who's fooling around already, I can see.
He's the one.
And terrific actor Jeff Daniels. Thank you all for coming to Theater Talk, and congratulations on the success of the play.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now for those who haven't seen it, and indeed that's many people because apparently you cannot get a ticket to get into The God of Carnage, I would just ask you, each of you, could give me a little sense of the character that you are playing and what is happening this night. Can we start with you?
Sure. The play is two couples meet, parents. We're all parents meeting to talk about a altercation between our sons that happens in a park. And Mike, James and I are married, and it's at our house. I'm Veronica Novak, and she's a person who's very interested in healing and in community and in being a very strong part of her kid's life, and she wants this conversation between the invited other group to go really, really well. She's a bit exacting, and she's sometimes reckless with the exactness of her words.
And a little tense, a little tense.
Did you think?
As the husband,
I didn't think.
what is he up to? What's going on with it?
I'm still working on that, but he's, I think, a self-made man. He comes from, in my opinion, a little less than being rich. He, and his wife is just driving him insane at this point. With her, what did you use? Exactness?
Her exactness, right.
Yes.
And her social aspirations.
And he's not the most positive human being on the planet.
Yeah.
As we find out over the course.
And into their living room arrives this couple.
The Raleighs.
The Raleighs.
The Republicans.
And who are the Raleighs?
Who are we?
We are rich people, to be sure. I think this was a surprise for us when we got onto the set and saw how very well off you were, right? That was maybe a surprise. I'm in wealth management. We don't know exactly how far up the ladder I've climbed. Conservative.
I love that you say climbed.
Yeah, in a good way, I think. If there is such a thing.
The parents of the guilty child.
The child who hit the other
child who has bashed in the face of the other child, wanting to make everything right. I've got an ass for a husband, though, which makes it awfully
in a good way.
Difficult. In a good way.
Yeah.
And what is this? And this husband is a lawyer?
I'm a lawyer. Those jokes aside, he's a corporate shark of a killer predator. And I live on the cell phone, and I can't be bothered with this trivial kind of
Type A.
things of local interest, as Hope's character says. And can this be over in 15 minutes? And who the hell are these people? I mean,
why am I here?
Time.
Yeah.
So, and that's great fun to play, is to just because as the story everyone kind of deteriorates into kind of really unfolding as to who they really are, my guy is kind of already there, or starts out already there. He goes into a different area
So
later.
he inspires the bad behavior by the rest of the folks in the living room?
He's got a
mine.
cattle prod. Every time I open my mouth, I'm sticking somebody.
Yeah. And I think it's a schism. The ideologies of them are completely different. Veronica's a writer writing about Darfur. That's why the exactingness of the words. But But it did feel like when we were looking at it that it's like the Democrats and the Republicans on some level. That in France, Yasmina wrote it, Reza's from France, so they don't have that same schism. Or maybe they do, but it was the word liberal meant something different to us in America and told us something different, and it became more political.
But what's interesting, though, I mean, this is a play where the kids have been fighting, and very quickly we see who the kids really are, which is the adults who start fighting. And as the play goes on, we see not only the conflict between this couple and that couple, but the conflicts within the couples themselves. And neither of these two marriages is exactly going all that well. Sorry, I hope you want to say.
No, the marriages are clinging on by the skin of their teeth, and we don't. Matthew didn't think that this marriage. Matthew Warchus, our the mighty Matthew Warchus, as he was called today in the New York Times.
Yes, he has another play after he made heard of called The Norman Conquest that just got very good reviews. So I'm sorry.
Yes, Matthew didn't think these marriages were going to survive. Although we think we've been living in this state for years.
I know.
The type of couple that, I mean, it's been. You have someone on the side. He said to me early on in rehearsals that he had someone on the side, which made me feel really good about myself.
She kept pushing me through backstory.
I'm still upset about that.
What's our backstory? I said, I got a 19-year-old in Paris. What's yours? Think you can use that?
Oh, it's very chilly at the Raleigh's house. Very, very cold and modern, and there's no books anyway. No time for that.
You'd have to read.
Yeah, but there are books all over your house because I dare say, what's interesting about this couple is you're an intellectual. You consider yourself a serious intellectual, and you're not an intellectual. Is it okay to say that?
Yes.
He's talking about not
the
Jim.
look on his face.
I know. Yeah.
And isn't it her intellectual pretensions, your wife's intellectual pretensions, that are just driving you crazy?
I think that it's also from what, we haven't got into it too much, and I think that's good in a way. But I think that he takes care of a lot of day-to-day things in his life and has to work very hard to keep this home.
It's not her pretensions. I mean, she believes in this stuff. She's not being false to it.
That's true.
She's forcing him to be false to what's true about him.
But aren't you spending beyond his? You're spending a lot. I mean, we're in your home. It's a lovely, stylish home. You're spending a lot of money that he's having trouble
Financial
earning.
issues are only brought up one time when he says we make ends meet.
Yeah.
So, because you said social aspirations too, I don't see that for her. I see that we were given a set. I don't see that we were part of designing a set. We were given something that says something.
No, indeed. But that tells. But the set communicates. Also,
But
that dessert you serve.
Clafouti.
Yes.
So we discussed Clafouti probably more than we discussed many of the other things of the play.
That's the only French thing, because that's a pretty high. I mean, I've never had a Clafouti.
I didn't know what it was until this play. I learned something.
I
just figure they have a little money, and that the Clafouti is
and in the neighborhood.
What's pretentious is that he says Clafouti and she says Clafouti.
You didn't know what Clafouti is.
Not a clue.
But the point is, to translate it into Betty Buckle, there's a whole. This is when you get into the what was hard about doing a translation.
Yeah.
If we did Buckle, there's a whole series that comes after that. This is how we are with each other. They can just keep talking.
Parallel tracks.
Focus, guys. Focus group. Come on.
She's making a serious point about this very important play about Clafouti. No, you can tell that story in a minute. I just want to say what you brought up on is very key, though, the class issues of this play that Yasmina Reza deals with very often in her work. And I'm curious because this play began in Paris, was done in London, is now set in New York. I understand there was a discussion at some point about setting it sort of in a generic upper class house. Why did, in the end, you decide to make you New Yorkers?
Well, it just seemed like the only choice that really worked. And it also really seemed that the play didn't function well when it seemed like it was in this kind of generic dream anywhere land, that it needed its specificity, but that Paris just was, it's inconceivable.
Yeah.
Could you have played French?
With difficulty.
But the British.
No. I'd have passed.
Could you have done French?
I'd have passed, yeah.
I think Yasmina originally didn't want to change the locales. The first day we all met, we were sitting around the table and we changed a couple of locations she said,
got angry.
I feel I'm losing my play, you know. And we could understand why, that it suddenly, those weren't her words and those weren't her choices.
How did you solve that issue? How did you bring her along and say, okay, we're going to...
She loves Matthew, first
She trusts
of all.
Matthew.
She only had 3 days here, then she left. Essentially.
Went to direct a movie.
And Chris Hampton was our translator.
I have to. You guys are having a lot of fun on the stage. Do you think if Yasmina popped around and looked at the play, would she recognize her play there?
God.
Yeah, her brother said she'd love it.
She'd love it.
Her brother was there opening night.
He said she'd love it. It's absolutely what she would want. And he said we're closer to French than we know, he says.
Now, I was talking to Matthew Warchus the other night at the opening of his new smash play, The Norman Conquest.
How is he? We haven't seen him. I hear he's got other work.
The night I went to see God of Carnage, he was at the back of the house taking notes. He said, "I haven't
It's the
seen."
first time he's been there.
Yeah.
He said, "I haven't seen the play in a while. I just want to see how it's going." We were talking about the early rehearsals, and I'm going to put you on the spot for a moment, because this is what Matthew told me.
I'll be all right.
The three of you have done a lot of stage work. You, not quite so much on stage. Was there a feeling when you went in that rehearsal room that you were up against these three real theatrical killers and you were going to have to work a little extra hard to get up to their level? Having not done theater for a while?
No, I think I was probably kind of arrogant, and it took me about a day or two to really realize that I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Really?
I was going to say my cell phone's over there when I heard it before.
This is what happened every day at rehearsal. At the same time,
Somebody that
every
can-
day.
I'll go back and
Their phone went off.
Well, someone heard
There's a bag right there. I apologize. I heard the other one.
We'd be in the middle of, I don't give a shit, Ronnie. Hold on.
20 times.
You have to run from the cell phone off.
Well, at least you're
I'm
not
sorry.
taking the call like some actors do.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
We'll leave that little cell phone routine in because you rang on it. Then we'll just cut into a little bit, so. Hold on, I'll pick it up.
Oh, excuse me.
Sorry.
Oh, I guess you can cut this.
This is our marriage.
Apparently you can cut this.
God of Carnage
got
just
it.
said.
They're playing something.
We just saw a moment.
We love each other so much. You should taste her food. Sorry.
Oh, yes, all right.
Yeah, so cell phones going off in rehearsal and all that, you're paying no attention to these people.
What's the
No, I'm
question?
sorry.
You were better pick it up better than that, Mike. You're going to pick it up.
Question, will you?
Excuse me, darling. You said you came in a bit
I got it.
arrogant.
No, that was more of a joke than anything. I came in thinking I was going to be able to be fine, and it was not that fine for a little while. I was a little, I guess shell-shocked is the word. I don't know why.
Well, can I? I mean, first of all, I felt the same way. I haven't been on stage in 8 or 9 or almost 10 years.
That's true. The same
And the
amount of
characters.
time.
I mean, now you saw the show recently. Now we really know what we're doing, and we figured out who these characters are. But they were very tricky to pin down because they're all over the map.
And Jeff, I assume you were leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. In the first
He had his
day going
lines
through.
memorized about day 3.
Oh
It
no!
was
Are
so
you that
annoying.
kind of an actor who comes in so well prepared and?
Yes.
Because of the.
No, you know what? It's everyone came in. First of all, everyone was good. I mean, just on paper before we even came in, everybody was good, and I was the last one to sign on. They were already in, and it's just a matter of figuring out this play. It's maddening. There's no A to B to C to D to E. There's no logical. She's got it. You know, Jeffrey Rush had worked with Yasmina before, and we saw him at something in February, and he said, don't try to find the logic. Just when you veer left, just go with it. Just go with it. You'll figure it out later as you're doing it. And that was a great piece of advice. And I think once we all kind of figured that out and stopped trying to, logically
get a
go
through line that was going
Right.
to follow the whole thing.
and
Right.
it was the difficulty of the play for everybody,
Yeah, actors are kind of trained to figure out your character, find the arc, but none of our characters have an arc that's an arc.
Well,
It's just
sorry.
I did feel very out of sorts, and then I think we had a meeting, and essentially I was told, this is the way you're supposed to feel.
Yeah.
So don't drive yourself completely insane about it. And I said, oh, well, that's helpful. So it really was. It was very helpful to me. So.
And in the New York theater, too, the previews are so overrated for actors. You think that you're opening on the first preview. And unfortunately, on the internet, you are.
Yeah.
And so, but we aren't. And, our attitude, certainly mine with previews is, if you're stupid enough to pay full price for a preview, God bless you, because we're still working on it. And we used previews. There were rewrites, there were different stagings. We had
Hundreds of pages of notes.
Yeah, notes,
the mighty Matthew
notes. He
Mortis,
had his hands on us.
Oh, yeah.
Every line, Matthew's had his hands on us at some point. And so that's all through previews. It is. It's a wonderful
And
time.
in New York, you do have these vagrant types that want to write everything about it, but there's also a wealth of people who are coming and they know they're a part of something in process. And they'll say it's the most exciting time to see it because you guys are figuring it out. So every single night, there's something live and figured out right there, right there, right there. Not that it's not now, but there's less. There's but chunks and chunks where you're really on a tight wire, and it's fantastic. And oftentimes those people come back and see it again.
Is it fair to say that maybe in any play, but especially a play like this, because there's a lot of physical comedy in it, that you really don't know what you have, what's going to work until you put it up in front of 1,500 people and to see what's going to get the laugh?
Absolutely, though. We had no idea how many laughs this play had.
Not how many, but we knew some because we couldn't keep it together in rehearsal.
Well, we did an insane amount of laughing in rehearsal. But that doesn't, as we all know from the movies, that never necessarily translates to comedy on screen when you're yucking up at each other's little...
Right.
We had no idea till the first preview how many laughs there were.
There still are laughs in different places every night. Which
yes, it's never frozen.
No, not at all. I mean, I think it would take months for this play to get frozen. We are still uncovering things.
It's very alive, and that's what's exciting with the four of us is that we're all staying within what he asked us to do, but it's alive. You know, it's sometimes you're there, and sometimes you're not. I mean, as far as a look or something like that. And my opinion on how to do 8 shows a week is we can all do Mule on the Trail, where you're going down and you do the same choices every night, and halfway through the show you're thinking which restaurant you're going to go to. Or you can keep it alive, and that's what's so exciting about the four of us, I think, is that you can, it's just every night he does that Neanderthal speech, it's like the first time he's doing it. It's really exciting, you know, and that keeps the acting on stage and the chemistry there and the ensemble there.
So how do you keep that fresh? That Neanderthal speech.
That's because I don't know it. No, we're all trying different
I saw that here, Mike.
Everybody's a little different every night. Even if it's the energy and we tap into it and we adjust, it is that way. It is that kind of play, and that is, it's, you know, you go into the shoot, as I think you once said, and you just go, and then all of a sudden you realize you're near the end. And you're like, wow.
We do a
also,
wonderful
Matthew
thing
gave you the freedom of, he said you could play with that Neanderthal speech, which is, you know...
You kind of have to, yeah.
Yeah, and so Jim's able to change a word around here or there, so it gives him some freedom with it.
Jeff, you were going to say?
But there's so much noise made about chemistry, which is just people listening. And I think the four of us are really great at using each other, and at times abusing each other through the characters. Where none of us are afraid to do that, and it's wonderful. It's never personal. It's always just, you know, I'm going to use her tonight. She's going to use me, hoping I, you know, have looks that are just like chill, and that keeps it alive. So that 8 times a week you aren't caught in a kind of a.
Is there ever a danger though with this? The humor in this play, the physicality of this play, and I'll let my wife talk in a moment. Though, if you...
She's getting really mad.
I know. If you... God of Carnage. If you're doing... You all have, and I don't want to give them away because they're wonderful, you all have wonderful bits of physical business that get a big laugh. Do you have to, though, avoid the pitfall of, boy, I can make that laugh even bigger if I just do a little more when I lift my finger?
I think of it like calories. If the play is a certain weight and a certain shape, and that shape is great, then if you milk this one and you get a few calories on that laugh, a few calories on that laugh, and a few calories here, pretty soon it's this flaccid, wobbly thing that you're trying to deliver in the same way. Not to say that a milk laugh isn't good, but you have to look at it and go, is it good calories or is it just waste calories? Is it just masturbatory in a way? And that's how I think of it. But I think the good news is that we're thinking about it. We're not, there's no, you've been in plays, films where the bigger, and it becomes a grandstanding, it becomes, you know, and it's, I think we're all thinking about it to keep
would
it in
throw it
that
off,
way.
yeah.
So Matthew really won't let us do that.
Yeah,
When he shows up to see the play, right?
he was on top of that.
There's
He
a
really
lot.
very on
directed
top
us
of that.
away from
Away
that.
from
He
it,
really
right.
did.
Specifically said what sort of things to you to keep you from overindulging.
about
Turn away from the audience so no one can see your face at all.
Ah, interesting.
On this
And
line,
don't move.
which is a punchline, and you're going, okay. And he really didn't want that. And none of us have abused that since we've opened, which is great. It's just great.
There's a
And-
lot
and he
of-
also said, too, and then he said, never fall in love with, just keep doing the play you're doing. The pain, the passion, the cruelty. Don't start doing the play they're watching.
Ah, right. They're
And that was
watching
a
it.
great piece
And
of
don't fall in love
direction,
with a
I thought.
joke.
Yeah, just keep it on stage, keep it, mean it every night.
Good thing you guys get along, because if you didn't, you really could undermine each other night after night. I mean, you could throw
This would be a
problem.
brutal experience if we didn't get along.
If you
It
thought
really
that
would
way,
That's what I was just going to say. If you thought there are people who think like that, and then there's people who don't. And I think most New York, I'm not saying anything about California, any other location, but actors I find can get this really bad rap that you look at from this bullshit magazine, what do they call the little magazine rag things. Most New York actors, most actors are really generous. They really want the play to go well. They're smart. They love the writing. They love rhythm. They love hearing how they get that the play is music. They know that there's room at the top. They know that you better be good to people on the way up because you're going to be seeing the same people on the way down. Like, you get it, that it's a community of gypsies telling great stories, and that the point to do it is to move people, to teach people and be with people and share a little something about humanity. So, but I worked with those that would be like this. Because it's one stupid story. There was this one actress.
I need names.
I can't name, I can't. So famous. She would probably laugh. But just one actress who, when we were doing these publicity photos, literally, I won't do it to you, but she took my face.
Go ahead.
She used my face to pull hers back. So her face was like this, and the side of my face was like this, and then she put her hand on my other side like it was like a happy gesture. So her face was back, and literally mine was like this. That's what I look like. And no, I did.
People are going to be trolling the internet for that picture.
I do want to ask you, though, on the subject of the issue of competitiveness among actors. As we said many times, it's a great ensemble, but we're coming into Tony Award time, and this, for better or for worse, sets up horse races, predictions of who's going to be nominated, who's not going to be nominated. Do you feel that the emphasis on Tony Awards, that there's an overemphasis on it, and that it can split companies and split actors and make people competitive in a way that if we didn't have all these awards and these prizes, it wouldn't happen?
Yes.
Can it? Yes, absolutely.
It can. It can split you. It can make you competitive in a way
If you
don't
allow
want.
it.
If you allow
yeah,
it.
Me personally, no, but I think it's going to be what it is. I mean, it's in our end. If some people get it and some people don't, then it's. I look at it as advertising for the show, and happy for the people who do. And as we've all said, if you want to come to work the next day, then you thank the other three. Which we all will.
That's what I killed.
But there
And
was.
plus, there's great swag. There really is.
I think it would create imbalance for 5 minutes. I
You think it would? If one of you got nominated or two and the other two...
But it would be quickly forgotten. And it's really more about the producers kind of worrying about it and talking to us about it. And it's going to be what it's going to be. And 2 days later, nobody's going to remember it.
Everyone's paying attention to it and throwing things down, and you're watching it, and you can ingest it and believe it or not. And all of us have been nominated for all kinds of things before.
And won them.
And won some, lost some. So we know that you also know what it is. Not that to be distinguished, but you can't, it isn't great, but you can't really, there's really no winners in art, and we already know that.
And you, if you get nominated, you're going to soar off and take over the play and run things?
He said the other day, he's like, what do we even
It matters.
He didn't even know. He didn't even know. He
It
didn't know
matters.
the Tonys were.
Do you remember who got
I'm
nominated?
very
Who
happy
won
if somebody
last year?
does, and if we, it'd be nice to win Best Play, I guess, for all of us together. But if
We'd love to
not,
win
I think that we've accomplished putting something up that people like. They have a good time. They leave generally with a smile on their face, unless their marriage sucks, and that's more than enough for me.
The experience.
On that note, well, I would say,
well said.
if I were in charge of the Tony Awards, I would give the Ensemble Acting Tony to the cast of The God of Carnage. Jim Gandolfini, Marcia Gay Harden, Hope Davis, and Jeff Daniels. Terrific performances, and you're a lot of fun just chatting with. Thanks for being our guests tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Henry has a 9-year-old sister, Camille, who's furious with her father because last night her father got rid of the hamster.
You got rid of the hamster?
Yes. This hamster makes the most god-awful racket all night long and then spends the whole day fast asleep. Henry was in a lot of pain last night. He was being driven crazy by the noise that the hamster was making. And to tell you the truth, I've wanted to get rid of it for a while now. So I said to myself, okay, that's it, and I took it and I put it in the street.